Welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today's story is about rejected for being poor. He came back as their boss. Let's start today's story. The rain hit harder than usual that night. Not the soft kind that whispers against the window, but the kind that sounds like the world is breaking apart. Inside a small, dim apartment on the edge of the city, Ethan Cole sat quietly, staring at a rejection email glowing on his cracked laptop screen. "We regret to inform you." He didn't even finish reading it. He didn't need to. He already knew. Another job, gone. Another opportunity, taken away. Another reminder that in this city, being poor wasn't just a condition. It was a sentence. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. His fingers were rough, scarred from years of working construction jobs that barely paid enough to survive. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't stupid. He just wasn't lucky. And in America, luck often wore a suit. Across the city. At that same moment. 20 miles away. Everything was different. Glass walls. Golden lighting. Champagne flowing like water. Inside a luxury penthouse, laughter echoed through the room as business elite celebrated another multi-million-dollar deal. At the center of it all stood Adrian Voss. Young. Sharp. Dangerously confident. He adjusted his tailored suit and smirked as a group of investors praised him. "Another win, Adrian. You're unstoppable." He smiled. "I don't lose." And he meant it. Two worlds. One collision. The next morning, Ethan stood outside a massive corporate building, holding a folder that carried his last hope. Voss Industries. He had no connections. No influence. No backup plan. But he had something else. Desperation. He walked in. The lobby alone made him feel small. Marble floors, towering ceilings, people who looked like they belonged somewhere important. Unlike him. Still, he stepped forward. "Interview," the receptionist asked, barely looking at him. Ethan nodded. She scanned him once, his worn-out shoes, cheap shirt, tired eyes, and typed something into her system. "Wait over there." No smile. No respect. Just procedure. The interview that changed everything. 20 minutes later, Ethan sat across a glass table from 3 executives. And one of them was Adrian Voss. Ethan didn't know who he was at first. But he could feel it. Power. The kind that doesn't need to speak loudly because everyone already listens. "Ethan Cole," Adrian said, flipping through his file. Construction background, no degree, no corporate experience. Ethan swallowed. "Yes, sir. But I learn fast." Adrian raised a hand. "Silence. We're not in the business of teaching survival. We hire people who already know how to win." The room felt colder. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "I just need one chance." Adrian looked at him for a long moment, then leaned back in his chair. And smiled. Not kindly. Not respectfully. But the kind of smile that comes right before someone destroys you. "One chance." Adrian repeated. "Let me tell you something, Ethan." He stood up slowly and walked around the table. "People like you don't need chances." He stopped right behind Ethan. "They need reality." A soft chuckle echoed from the other executives. Ethan's jaw tightened. Adrian stepped back into view. "This company builds leaders, not charity cases." Then he tossed Ethan's resume onto the table. "Interview over?" The laugh. Ethan stood there, frozen. For a moment, he thought about saying something. Anything. But the words didn't come. So he turned. And walked out. Behind him. Laughter. Quiet, but sharp enough to cut. And that was the moment everything changed. The breaking point. Outside, the rain had started again. Ethan walked without direction, his mind replaying every word. People like you? Charity case. Reality. He stopped under a flickering streetlight. His hands clenched into fists. Not out of sadness. But something else. Something darker. Something stronger. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't thinking about surviving. He was thinking about revenge. Not the loud kind. Not the kind with shouting. Not the kind with violence. No. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind where you don't fight someone. You become better than them. The promise. Ethan looked up at the skyline. At the tall buildings that once felt impossible. At the world that had rejected him. And for the first time, he smiled. All right, he whispered. You want reality? His eyes hardened. I'll give you reality. The plan begins. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He researched. He studied. He watched hours of business strategies, market trends, startup stories. He realized something important. The rich weren't just lucky. They understood the game. And he was about to learn it. The alarm rang at 4:30 a.m. Ethan didn't hit snooze. He didn't hesitate. He didn't complain. Because something inside him had changed. The shift. Just a week ago, he was chasing jobs. Now, he was chasing power. Not the loud kind. Not the flashy kind. But the kind that builds quietly. And strikes when no one is ready. No money. No excuses. Ethan opened his laptop, slow, outdated, barely working. His bank balance? $42.17. That was all he had. No investors. No rich friends. No backup plan. Just a decision. I'm done being the guy who gets rejected. Learning the game. Every day followed the same brutal routine. Work construction from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eat cheap food. Come home exhausted. Then, study until 2 a.m. Business models. Marketing psychology. Sales strategies. Startup case studies. He didn't just watch videos. He analyzed them. What makes people buy? Why do some companies explode while others die? How do the rich actually think? And slowly, he started to understand. The first idea. It didn't come in a flash. It came in frustration. One night, after another 14-hour day, Ethan stared at his phone and noticed something. Small businesses everywhere were struggling to get customers online. Bad ads. No strategy. Wasted money. And suddenly, it clicked. What if I fix that? The risk. Starting anything required money. And Ethan had none. So he did something most people wouldn't. He sold his only valuable possession. His motorcycle. It wasn't just transportation. It was freedom. Memories. Escape. But he let it go. For $1,200. That money wasn't comfort. It was fuel. The first step. Ethan didn't open a fancy office. He didn't build a perfect brand. He did something smarter. He started small. Local businesses. Restaurants. Gyms. Repair shops. He walked in personally. No emails. No ads. Just him and his belief. The rejections are again. Not interested. We already tried marketing. Come back later. We don't trust people like you. The words were different. But the feeling? The same as that interview. Still. This time, Ethan didn't walk away defeated. He adjusted. Improved. Tried again. The first yes. It happened on a random Thursday. A small, struggling cafe. The owner looked tired. Overworked. Close to giving up. Ethan made his pitch. Simple. Clear. Honest. No big promises, he said. Just let me bring you more customers. If I fail, you don't pay. The owner hesitated. Then nodded. All right. One chance. The pressure. This wasn't just a client. This was everything. If he failed, he was back to nothing. So Ethan went all in. He studied the cafe's audience. Created targeted ads. Optimized every dollar spent. No guessing. Only strategy. The breakthrough. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, a few clicks. Day 3, small improvement. Day 5. Something changed. Customers started coming in. Not randomly, but consistently. By the end of the second week, the cafe was full. Lines at the door. Revenue up. Energy back. The moment. The owner pulled Ethan aside. I don't know what you did, he said, shaking his head. But this place hasn't been this busy in years. Then he handed Ethan an envelope. Inside? $2,000. Ethan stared at it. More money than he'd ever made in one shot. But it wasn't just money. It was proof. The fire ignites. That one success changed everything. The cafe owner told others. Word spread. One client became 3. 3 became 10. Ethan wasn't chasing opportunities anymore. They were starting to find him. But he didn't celebrate. No parties. No luxury. While others would relax, Ethan doubled down. He reinvested everything. Better tools. Better ads. More knowledge. Because he understood something critical. This isn't success yet, this is just the beginning. The transformation. Months passed. The broke construction worker was slowly becoming something else. Sharper. Smarter. More dangerous. Not physically, but mentally. Strategically. And then, one night, while reviewing client data, a familiar name appeared in an article on his screen. Voss Industries. Adrian Voss. Still winning. Still dominating. Still at the top. Ethan leaned back in his chair. A slow smile formed. Not emotional. Not angry. Just certain. The reminder. He didn't forget that day. The rejection. The words. The laughter. But now. It didn't hurt. It fueled him. The promise evolves. Ethan closed his laptop. Looked out at the city lights. And whispered quietly. Soon. The city looked different now. Not because it had changed. But because Ethan had. From surviving to building. 6 months ago, he was counting coins. Now? He was counting clients. Not hundreds, not yet. But enough to feel it. Momentum. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. It just keeps growing. The system. Ethan realized something most people never do. Working harder isn't enough. You need systems. So he built one. Automated ad campaigns. Repeatable marketing frameworks. Data tracking for every dollar spent. He stopped trading time for money. And started building something that could grow without him. The first office. It wasn't fancy. A small room. 2 desks. 1 whiteboard. But to Ethan? It felt like a skyscraper. Because it represented something powerful. He was no longer stuck. The first team. Success alone is slow. So Ethan hired carefully. Not degrees. Not resumes. Mindset. Hunger. People who had something to prove. Because he knew. Those are the most dangerous people in the world. Late nights, bigger vision. The grind didn't stop. If anything, it got more intense. Now it wasn't just about him. It was about building something real. Something that couldn't be ignored. The upgrade. 1 year later. Everything changed. New office. Downtown. Glass walls. Modern design. The kind of place people respect the moment they walk in. The same kind of place. Where he once felt small. The numbers don't lie. Revenue growing every month. Clients expanding across states. Brands trusting him with bigger budgets. Ethan wasn't just working anymore. He was winning. The name. People started recognizing it. Not Ethan. Not yet. But his company. A name that was slowly becoming known in business circles. Respected. Feared by competitors. And impossible to ignore. But he stayed quiet. No social media flexing. No flashy lifestyle. Because this was never about showing off. This was about positioning. Timing. Power. The opportunity. Then one day. An email arrived. Subject line. Partnership proposal, Voss Industries. Ethan froze. For a second. Time stopped. Full circle. The same company. The same building. The same world that once rejected him. Was now reaching out. The irony. They didn't know. They didn't recognize the name. To them, this was just another rising agency worth partnering with. To Ethan, this was something else. Something deeper. The decision. He could ignore it. He could reject them. He could take revenge immediately. But Ethan didn't rush. Because real power is patient. The meeting set up. He replied. Short. Professional. Let's schedule a meeting. The night before, Ethan stood in front of the mirror. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. Clean. Sharp. Controlled. Not to impress them. But because he had become the man they once said he couldn't be. The return begins. The next morning, he stepped out of a black car. Looked up at the towering building. Voss Industries. Same doors. Same lobby. Same place. Where they laughed at him. But this time, the doors opened differently. The receptionist stood up. Good morning, sir. Sir. Not wait over there. Not judgment. Respect. The walk. Each step echoed. Not with doubt. But with certainty. Employees glanced at him. Not because he looked out of place. But because he looked like someone important. The room. He entered the meeting room. Executives already seated. And at the head of the table. Adrian Voss. The pause. Adrian looked up. For a brief second. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Maybe. Maybe not. But Ethan saw it. And that was enough. The power shift. Mr. Cole, Adrian said, standing up. This time. He extended his hand. Ethan shook it. Firm. Calm. Controlled. No anger. No emotion. Just quiet dominance. The game has changed. Impressive growth, Adrian continued. Your company is making noise. Ethan nodded slightly. Appreciate that. The silence between words. Neither of them mentioned the past. But it was there. Heavy. Unspoken. The beginning of the end. As the meeting started, Ethan leaned back slightly. Listening. Analyzing. Calculating. Because this wasn't just business. This was something bigger. Revenge. Done right. Not loud. Not emotional. Not rushed. But precise. Strategic. Inevitable. And Adrian had no idea. The man he once dismissed was now sitting across from him as an equal. Maybe more than equal. Ethan's mind. One thought echoed quietly. You taught me reality. A slight smile formed. Now I'll show you mine. The room was silent, but not empty. It was filled with something heavier than words. Power. The meeting begins. Charts appeared on the screen. Numbers. Projections. Growth strategies. Voss Industries wanted one thing. Expansion. And Ethan's company? Was the key. But this wasn't just business. Adrian spoke with confidence. We're looking for a long-term partnership. Your systems, your results, they're exactly what we need. Ethan listened quietly. No reaction. No excitement. Just observation. Because he already knew something Adrian didn't. Who needs who the more? The subtle shift. Ethan leaned forward slightly. Partnership, he repeated calmly. Adrian nodded. Yes. It's a big opportunity. A small pause. Then Ethan said something that changed the entire tone of the room. Not for me. The first crack. Silence. One executive shifted in his seat. Adrian's expression tightened just slightly. Excuse me. Ethan stayed calm. I don't do partnerships where I'm replaceable. Control. That one sentence did what years of status couldn't. It flipped the room. Now they weren't evaluating him. He was evaluating them. The pressure builds. Adrian leaned back, studying him. You've grown fast, he said. But don't mistake momentum for dominance. Ethan smiled faintly. I don't. Another pause. Then. I understand leverage. The hidden truth. Ethan clicked the remote. The screen changed. Data appeared. Real data. Market trends, performance comparisons, weaknesses. All pointing to one thing. Voss Industries was slipping. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. The realization. For the first time. The room shifted uncomfortably. Because now it was clear. They didn't reach out to Ethan because they wanted to. They did it because they needed to. Adrian's reaction. Adrian's jaw tightened. But he stayed composed. Impressive research. Ethan nodded. I learned from the best. A subtle line. But it hit. The offer. Ethan stood up slowly. Walked toward the screen. Then turned back to face them. No partnership, he said. Another pause. Acquisition. Shock. The word landed like a bomb. One executive almost laughed, but stopped. Because Ethan wasn't joking. The tables turn. Adrian's eyes locked onto his. You think you can buy Voss Industries? Ethan didn't blink. I know I can. Confidence versus certainty. Adrian had confidence. Ethan had certainty. And those two things are not the same. The truth revealed. You built an empire, Ethan continued. Respect. Then his tone sharpened slightly. But you stopped adapting. Silence. And in business, That's how you lose. The moment. Adrian stood up. Now face to face. Same height. Same presence. But not the same power. Recognition. And then? It happened. Adrian looked closer. Really looked. And suddenly, he remembered. The past returns. That interview, Adrian said slowly. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need to. The realization hits. You're that guy. Not a question. A statement. Full circle. The room felt different now. Because this wasn't just a business meeting anymore. This was history. Ethan's response. Yes, he said calmly. No anger. No bitterness. Just truth. The weight of the past. For the first time, Adrian had no immediate response. Because he understood something terrifying. The man he dismissed didn't just survive. He evolved. The final offer. Ethan placed a folder on the table. Take your time, he said. Then added quietly. But not too much. The walk away. And just like that, he turned and walked out. No need to stay. Because real power doesn't argue. It doesn't beg. It presents options. And lets pressure do the rest. Outside the building, Ethan stepped out into the sunlight. Same place. Same city. But a completely different man. The shift is complete. He wasn't chasing anything anymore. He had become the thing others chase. Inside the room. Back upstairs. No one spoke. Adrian stared at the folder. Then finally said, "Get me everything on him." Too late. Because the truth was, by the time they realized who he really was, it was already too late. The city was quiet that night. But inside one office, a decision was about to be made. The pressure. Adrian Voss sat alone, staring at the folder Ethan left behind. Numbers. Projections. Buyout terms. Every page said the same thing. Ethan wasn't bluffing. The truth he couldn't ignore. Voss Industries was still strong. But not untouchable. And Ethan? He wasn't just rising anymore. He was positioned perfectly. Strategic partnerships. Growing influence. Financial backing that didn't exist a year ago. Adrian leaned back slowly. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Pressure. Ego versus reality. He had two choices. Reject the offer. And risk losing everything slowly. Or accept it. And lose control instantly. The memory. And then it hit him. That day. That interview. Those words he said so easily. People like you don't need chances, they need reality. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Now. Reality had come back. Across the city. Ethan stood by a floor-to-ceiling window in his office. Looking down at the city that once ignored him. Lights everywhere. Movement. Opportunity. But no celebration. Because this was never about money. It was never about proving people wrong loudly. It was about something deeper. Control over his own life. The call. His phone rang. Unknown number. Ethan answered. Ethan Cole. A short pause. Then. This is Adrian Voss. No emotion. Thought so, Ethan replied calmly. No tension. No excitement. Just control. The decision. Adrian didn't waste time. We're ready to talk. Ethan looked out at the skyline. You've had time to think. A pause. Then Adrian said the words he never thought he would. We'll accept. Silence. Not long. But meaningful. Because in that silence, everything changed. The end of an empire. A few weeks later, the deal was finalized. Quietly. No headline screaming drama. No public chaos. Just a shift. A powerful one. The announcement. Voss Industries acquired in strategic deal. Simple. Clean. But behind those words was a story no one fully knew. The new reality. Inside the same building. The same office. Ethan now stood at the top. The chair. Adrian's old chair. Now his. Ethan didn't sit immediately. He just looked at it. Not with pride. Not with arrogance. But with understanding. Because he knew. This wasn't the goal. This was just a milestone. The final meeting. Adrian walked in. No suit arrogance this time. No dominance. Just presence. The silence between them. Two men. Same room. Very different journeys. The moment of truth. Adrian spoke first. You won. Ethan shook his head slightly. No. A pause. I built. The difference. Winning is temporary. Building? That lasts. Adrian's reflection. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. Then added quietly. I underestimated you. Ethan's response. You didn't underestimate me, Ethan said calmly. You judged me too early. The line that ended it all. Silence again. Then Ethan stepped closer. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just directly. And said the one thing that brought everything full circle. You taught me reality. A pause. Then. Thank you. No anger. No revenge shouting. That was it. No insults. No humiliation. Because the greatest revenge is not destroying someone loudly. It's becoming untouchable. Ethan didn't take Adrian down. He simply rose so high that Adrian couldn't reach him anymore. The final scene. Later that evening. Ethan stood alone again. Looking at the city. Same view. Different life. The truth. He wasn't the poor guy anymore. He wasn't the rejected one. He wasn't the charity case. He was the standard now. The one others look at and wonder. How did he do it? The answer? Not luck. Not shortcuts. But pain turned into discipline. Rejection turned into fuel. And silence turned into power. Final line, perfect ending. The day they laughed at him was the day he stopped asking for a chance and started taking everything.